Okay, we are live. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. We're just going to wait about 1 minute while participants filter in. Hi, Mom. Okay. We're going to give it maybe like 30 more seconds before we kick off. People are filing in. Thanks everyone for joining tonight. I'm gonna give it just a few more seconds. I think sometimes the waiting room can get a little congested and it takes a second for people to join. Okay. All right. Okay, we're gonna get started. Hi, huge hello to everyone that's joined us tonight. We are so glad that you're here. My name is Kelly Cobb. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the VP of Giving at Bombas. It's Women's History Month. Very exciting. I'm so glad to be able to host this discussion around the realities of women experiencing homelessness and some of the incredible women-led organizations who support them. We were just talking about how an hour never feels like quite enough to get into the complexities within these topics, but this won't be the last time that we're discussing them. We are committed to continuing to have a conversation just like this one and inviting you all, our team, our customers, our community to be part of it. This is still fairly new to Bombas. This is our fourth in our ongoing speaker series, but we'll continue to host one every month. So we hope you'll keep coming back to learn with us. So let's get into tonight's topic, homelessness. And the way that we tend to speak about it, the way that care is designed, is often quite generalized. It's intended to serve everyone who needs it. And there's something that's not quite effective with that approach. Women who experience it are just one part of the intersection with homelessness. For reasons that we'll get into this evening, it's so important to bring attention to the need of specialized services to meet the individual. To give us some stats to help with an understanding of what homelessness looks like around the United States, approximately 600,000 individuals experience homelessness in the US in any given year, particularly in the last few years. And that's likely a number that is an undercount due to, one, hardships experienced by so many this year, and also the way that the counts are done, the process by which folks are counted. It's likely a number that will unfortunately continue to rise. Of that total, approximately 29% are women, and many of those women also have children and are responsible for their care. Another intersection that's often left out of the conversation is around transgender women who are experiencing homelessness. And to offer a bit of context here, 1 in 5 transgender people in the United States has been discriminated against when seeking a home. And more than 1 in 10 have been evicted from their homes because of gender identity. LGBTQ plus youth experience homelessness at a disproportionate rate, and 1 in 5 transgender individuals have experienced homelessness at some point in their lives. Family rejection, discrimination, and violence are common root causes. Unfortunately, social service and homeless shelters that work with this population often fail to culturally and appropriately serve transgender homeless folks and offer supportive services to help honor their specific needs. I know that that's a lot of heavy statistics, and while we can't deny that they paint a troublesome, heartbreaking picture, we can celebrate the work that is being done. And that's what I'm excited to do tonight. We have an amazing panel. So let's get to some introductions and get into our conversation. I am so pleased to introduce Viviana De Cohen. She is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps Services and associate pastor at Mount Vernon Heights Congregational Church. She's dedicated her time and talent assisting veterans, ensuring food, shelter, clothing, education, employment, and a little motivation, earning her the affectionate title of Mama V. And I have to say, in the short time that I've known her, I completely understand how she earned that title. She is Mama V. Her military service has allowed her to earn a bachelor's in behavioral science and a master's in health service management, both from Mercy College, where she began formally working with veterans and developing programs to enhance academic and overall wellness for veterans. Viviana is also a caregiver coach, a lecturer, writer of aging wellness programs, and speaker for Westchester County Department of Senior Programs and Services, as well as the Alzheimer's Association. She's currently pursuing her doctorate in educational leadership in gerontology at Concordia University in Chicago. She also just let us know that this is her 5th panel in Women's History Month, and she still has 4 more to go. So I'm very excited to be able to have her here tonight with us. Next, I'm excited to introduce Janet Kim, who's the co-founder of SELAH Neighborhood Homeless Coalition in LA, which is an organization of neighborhood organizers who recognize unhoused individuals as fellow members of our community, worthy of the same dignity, respect, and representation afforded to any housed person. Janet was born and raised in Los Feliz and is currently serving on the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council as a District A representative. She was recently elected as a 43rd Assembly District Delegate to the California Democratic Party and is an active volunteer with the International Rescue Committee Immigration Department and the League of Women Voters Homeless Action Committee. Her past and current experiences include work in vaccine development, science, and security policy, as well as business development. Thanks for being here, Janet. And we have Jana Gonzalez, who is a drop-in services coordinator at Transgender Resource Center of New Mexico in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is and features services such as hot meals, harm reduction, legal support, and free HIV testing. Jana is a critical member of the team, absolutely, ensuring that the hundreds of people served by the center get the attention and care they need. Born and raised in Albuquerque, Jana's superpower is love, and she's inspired every day by the resiliency and perseverance of every person served at TGR CNM. She's also joined tonight by her adorable pup Chuck, who maybe we'll get a chance to see. Welcome to all of you. I think that's enough from me right now. Let's get into this combo. To start, beyond the introductions that I gave, I'd love for the audience just to get to know you all a little bit more. So much of where we're at now is thanks to our journeys, our individual journeys. And I'd love for you each to tell us a little bit about what got you to where you are now. Jana, would you kick us off?
Of course. My name is Jana Gonzalez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. So in 2016, I began my transition. And shortly after that, how am I going to say this? Sorry. Shortly after coming out that I was a trans woman, I pretty much lost everything. And so, I was in need of hormone replacement therapy and I was in need of housing assistance. So I came to TGR CNM. A friend had advised me that I could find help here. And so I came here, I got help with HRT, I got help with housing. And as I started gaining stability in my own life, I became a volunteer here at TGRC. I volunteered for about a year. And then I was offered a part-time position as HIV services coordinator. So I did that for about a year and a half. And then I I was elected as the team lead by the staff here. And that went on for a little while. I was, after about 6 months of that, I was offered a full-time position here as drop-in services coordinator. And I've been here ever since.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Janet, will you go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Janet Kim, and I'm one of the co-founders of SELAH Neighborhood Homeless Coalition. So this came about kind of accidentally because I decided that it was really important for me to be involved in my community and to take local action. So I joined my neighborhood council, and I met my other co-founders through other neighborhood councils in the surrounding area because we had this like collective realization that our area was just completely lacking in any services or resources for our unhoused neighbors. And we thought, okay, let's join forces and let's really get something together for our area, because if we're not asking for it, then we're not going to get it. So for us, like operating within, you know, the scope of neighborhood council kind of had limitations, because in Los Angeles, neighborhood council is a form of, it's called grass top advocacy, in that you're in the lowest form of government for the city, but it's unpaid, it's a volunteer thing, and you act more as an advisory board. And so for us, like, we really wanted to know what the needs are of our unhoused neighbors. So we started going out on engagement and just trying to get to know our unhoused neighbors, just so we know what to ask for and what to advocate for. And the co-founders, like, we're majority women. We're all either children of immigrants or immigrants ourselves. So we've accidentally been advocating for our entire lives, whether we knew it or not. And so we started off as an action and advocacy group. And so we realized that we needed to operate outside the confines of government. And so that's how we founded our community group and became a nonprofit. And there are a lot of things that you can do when you're not looking at things from a city point of view and as a neighbor point of view. And so for us, as a community group, we're literally helping our neighbors, all our volunteers, we're 100% volunteer led, first of all. And so, like, it was really important for us to say, like, we're actually taking care of our neighbors, we're advocating for our neighbors. And that actually is something really special to us. And I think that's what makes us so strong. So we started off with a mobile shower that we augmented with hot meals, phone charging, pet food, things that you would take for granted. A lot of people don't understand that, like, your phone is your lifeline to the world. And so even charging a phone, and I think, like, during the pandemic, it was really, really obvious that when libraries and Starbucks and different places are closed, like, how people's lives are impacted. So, like, I'm going off the rails here, but this is like definitely something that is a community level organization. And this is something that we have a lot of buy-in from neighbors, and that's what makes it work. And you have to take care of home, like we talked about it earlier, but the thing is, like, you have to take care of your community, and, like, being involved at a community level, you see the most results from it. You see the most, I think, action from it. And so that's why it was really important for us to start this community group.
Thanks, Jana. And thanks for mentioning the importance of acting at a community level. We're going to get into it in a deeper way a little bit later in the conversation. So I love that you're alluding to it now, as well as the need for holistic support. Viviana, will you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are now?
First of all, I'm already identifying with these lovely panelists already, because, like Janet, I started feeding veterans when I was 11 years old, stealing my parents' bologna and cheese. My dad would say, "Where the hell's the food?" And I'd say, "Dad, the veterans are needy." He said, "Damn it, we're the needy." And then like Giana, you know, after my military services, the economy hit in 1987, and I lost my job. And in a matter of days, because I wasn't in this state, I was in a state that there were no resources, and I ended up being thrown out with 2 small children and having no place to go. And so I know what this is. Come full circle, it took me years to get back into school. I was almost 50 years old. When I did, I asked for a veterans center for my own selfishness because I needed a quiet place to study, and they had no veterans center. And so I met the president and asked if we could create one. And long story short, that creation led to a veterans center that we found a grant for. We won money. We turned it into a USO, and then I found out that there were veterans that were failing or had been dismissed academically. And I know what's inside of a veteran. So I knew that if we paired together one pull, one push, as we do in boot camp, we called it Operation Buddy Up, that we could have their grade point averages rise, and they did. The school ultimately hired me. The college hired me, and I kept stepping up from there. Doors continued to open up. People heard about me, and this wonderful mayor, our first woman mayor here in Mount Vernon, there's Sean Patterson Howard, reached out to me. She saw the veterans and myself in the community doing volunteerism. Same thing that Janet was talking about. Same thing that Giana, with the resiliency to pay it forward and help other people. And she says, wow, she says, I'm seeing you guys everywhere, take my email, whatever you're doing with the veterans, let me know. The next day we volunteered, we were on television for having painted a porch in senior housing. She came to the church to meet my husband and to meet me. And she says, you know what? She said, I prayed about it, and you are my veterans commissioner. And I told her, I says, you know what? I said, let me show you a piece of paper in my prayer box, because my daughter, who passed away 4 years ago, in a dream said, Mommy, God said that you're veterans commissioner. And she says, here you go, you are. And listen, here I am today. Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are. So we tell them, women helping. And that's what we're doing today. We're women who are paying it forward by helping others because of what we've gone through, because of what we've seen and experienced on this journey.
Thank you, Viviana, and such a powerful reminder of how impactful it can be. You noticed a lack in the system where you could contribute and turn things around on behalf of your community and others, and look where it brought you. It's just incredible. I think that ties in so well too to what Janet was suggesting about community, working at a community level. And we're definitely going to talk more about that. But next, each of your organizations really do support a wide range of individuals, but I want to focus specifically on the experience of folks who self-identify as women and who face the trauma of homelessness. There are many different root causes of homelessness, of course. I'd love to hear from each of you with regard to the populations that you work with, individuals who self-identify as women who are experiencing homelessness, what you see as some of the root causes for them and how their experience may differ from that of men. Viviana, will you start us off with that one? And then we'll hear from Janet and Giana.
Absolutely. So first, let me tell you that my first day here, after I was sworn in and returned to the office, my first phone call was from a female veteran who literally said, I have an interview in an hour. I served my country. I'm living with my mother-in-law and soon to be divorced husband, and she has thrown my clothes out. I have nothing to wear to the interview. What do I do? And I remembered when it was me. So I said, meet me at the local Target. And while I was there, I bought 3 racks back. The veterans came to meet me, and I said, we have to turn this office into a resource closet, which we've named Kristen's Closet after the first commissioner that was here, Kristen Breeze Reed, for the beautiful work that she had already started. Resources, 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 resources. The truth is, I lived in a town and everything was tapped out because the economy hit. Navy Relief was tapped out. They said, we have no resources, tapped out. American Red Cross, they were tapped out of the resources. The welfare in that town says, Miss, this is not New York, sweetheart. We have to try to find your husband, and you have to wait 45 days to apply. Resources. I'm going to say again, resources. That's the heart of it. We can have Once you give us the resources, we can create. You don't have to give us anything else. You give us the resources and we will create a way, and we will create an opportunity. For women veterans, just let me say, for women veterans who are in the military, and daycare is $150 for the month, if that. And then you're coming out of service and you're coming home and you're finding that daycare is $600-700 a week. And now you're coming home as a divorcee with no one to watch your children. So let me say again, resources. Men don't have this problem. They can leave the wife, the children, they can go on, start another life. It's just them. They can pay the child support or not pay it. They can look back or not. But for women, we need help. And ask us what we need, and we'll tell you. All I need is resources. I don't need a handout. You give me the resources and I'll create my own way.
I love that. And the asking, just rather than assuming, asking for what's really needed for those resources. Janet, what do you think?
This is something that I think we can talk about all day long, the root causes of homelessness as it specifically pertains to women. I mean, off the top of my head, racism, sexism, the ridiculous nature of the American system of tying healthcare to employment. And I think if you look at the aftermath or the ongoing crisis that the pandemic is causing, who is actually leaving the workforce in the greatest numbers? It's women of color. That's who's leaving the workforce. And, Viviana touched upon it, things like childcare. These are things that put us at an economic disadvantage and keeps us held down. I don't even need to mention the pay gap, which is absolutely, absolutely real. Gender parity in all levels of government and different industries. The opportunities that, women are prevented from accessing, and things like that. I mean, like I can talk about like the different people that I have encountered, a lot of the women who I have encountered, and, how they came into homelessness. And I mean, this is in this country, like one bad medical bill can force you into homelessness. Like this is really crazy. And I hope the pandemic really is able to change how people think about who gets to access healthcare, who gets access to high quality healthcare, who gets access to jobs, who gets access to help, who suffers the most when this country is in crisis, no matter what. And I think these are, problems that are unique to women. I mean, if you think about how society makes us grow up feeling scared about the world. I mean, and as women, we are taught to fear the world. We are taught to police how we dress, how we present ourselves, how we talk to people, how to protect our drinks at bars. And instead of like addressing like who are the people who are exploiting and causing violence towards women, that like you're putting that on women. And I think, that translates to a lot of the trauma that women feel and experience while being unhoused. And these are all things that tie into a patriarchal capitalist system. So those are the root causes of homelessness that, really affect women. And I know those are like really, really big things, but like, these are all things that we need to pay attention to because, before the pandemic, the society and the economy and everything was not working for most people. And I think the pandemic just kind of highlighted that we had broken systems from decades ago. It's not just the pandemic. It's like the system built, in the past 100 years plus that have made these inequalities like really, really make women vulnerable to all kinds of social ills.
Absolutely. And it's so complex. There are so many facets that we need to focus on to begin to repair. And, I think starting even with conversations like these and just being able to create awareness around what is so broken and what those reasons are and address some of the misconceptions and skewed ways of thinking about how we've ended up where we are is so helpful. So we're so grateful for all of your perspectives on this. Giana.
Thank you. So, I mean, the points that these ladies have made are amazing. And just some other things to piggyback on that is intimate partner violence is a huge root cause of homelessness. Discrimination, as Janet said, is a huge part. Addiction and the lack of treatment for addiction, not so much addiction itself, because a lot of times addiction is a coping mechanism. And think about if it's -2 degrees outside and you haven't eaten for 4 days and someone's going to give you some kind of substance out there that's going to keep you warm and not keep you hungry. You know, somebody that is experiencing the trauma of homelessness is going to use. And so addiction isn't always a recreational thing. A lot of times it's a way of coping. It's a survival skill that people have used and adapted so that they can survive in the streets. An inability and a fear to try. A lot of times being homeless, we get beat down. Our self-esteem, it just plummets all the way down. And a lot of times we lose the initiative to seek out help. We lose the initiative to ask. We sometimes just don't feel like we deserve help at times. And so, you know, that is another root cause. Mental health, and not just mental health as being mental health, but the access to finding providers, the access to mental health treatment is the problem right there. And then also too, just in the present moment where we're at, COVID-19 has displaced so many people, and the times that we are in right now, COVID-19 is a root cause of homelessness as well.
Absolutely. And Giana, I love that you addressed the use of substances as a coping mechanism and a survival skill. I think so often that is such a misunderstood connection to the experience of homelessness, and one that is held with such judgment. But when we're thinking about it in the way that you've described it and really understand it as a coping mechanism, you know, it helps to really share a more compassionate view, I think. So I'm really glad that you brought that up among many other amazing points. It's clear that we really do need resources and the ability to create trusted relationships in order to empower the women that we want to support. So empowerment, I want to talk about the importance of meeting someone where they're at. Unfortunately, we know that particularly for women, there can be an overwhelming sense of shame that they feel regarding the situation that they're in. And all too often, shame, we talked a little bit about this earlier this evening, but all too often shame can be a large barrier to seeking the necessary intervention and help that one needs. Can you each speak a little bit about the unique realities of the populations you serve and what goes into meeting someone exactly where they're at, and why it's so important to help dismantle those feelings of shame? Let's start with Janet this time, and then we'll go to Giana and Viviana.
So the feelings of shame, that's something that I think technology has exacerbated just because of the fact that vehicles like Nextdoor and Facebook community groups have really like shown an ugly side of humanity. And I think there are a lot of people who live in most communities who forget that women who are experiencing homelessness are daughters and sisters and mothers and grandmothers, and they have friends and they have people who deeply care about them, that they're particularly vulnerable to exploitation and violence. And yes, these are women who have full, interesting lives. And yes, like a lot of them are on Twitter, a lot of them are next door and read a lot of these like horrible things that are said about them. They attend neighborhood council meetings where someone will say, let's be respectful. There are unhoused people, you know, in the audience. So let's like be mindful of how we speak. And people do not care. And the dehumanizing language that they use, it's frankly appalling. And we already live in a society where social isolation is such a big traumatic thing that people who are unhoused experience. And for any of us to kind of like jump in and like be involved and like assist someone, you quickly learn that you have to suspend all judgment and all preconceived notions and like really challenge the values that you had previously. Giana said it perfectly. Things like people who self-medicate to deal with trauma. You know, like there are so many people who will judge that. People judge people's substance use disorders. People judge people who are experiencing domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And so I think like for me, being part of SELAH and really getting to know my unhoused neighbors, like you start seeing really, really clearly that the world isn't black and white. And there are a lot of gray areas that will challenge all the things that you had growing up, like, okay, you should, you know, why don't you leave him, or like stop doing drugs? And like that's a lot easier said than done. And it helps you empathize with what people's experiences are. And it helps you really understand that, you know, there are people who are no less deserving of help just because like they're not following your moral code that you were brought up in or that society forces you to be a part of. And so that feeling of shame really, really is an obstacle for us to think about harm reduction that, you know, Giana can talk about, meeting people where they're at. Instead of judging someone, instead of criticizing someone or forcing them to do something that they're not ready to do, why don't you help them do whatever they're doing safely? Why don't you help them build trust in you and help them get the resources that'll eventually help them help themselves? Because when it comes down to it, like any problems that you have to be able to be in a position where you feel safe to help yourself. And I think like that's a lot of, that's something that a lot of people tend to forget.
Yes. And even, you know, you mentioned that if we can have the mentality that, you know, of course, these folks deserve help. And the way that I just can't help but think of it is that they are so incredibly deserving, you know, for those of us that have the ability to help. It's with the knowledge that these folks have experienced more than anyone should ever have to experience and the trauma associated with it. So I agree, and just trying to shift that mentality to one of compassion and understanding of what it's like to be helped ourselves and how to share that with another person is such an important reminder. Giana, will you speak to this next?
Yes, of course. There's so much trauma that is endured when someone is experiencing homelessness. And as providers, we have to set the tone by offering a judgment-free setting. We have to create trusting relationships with the people that are seeking resources from us. We have to create stronger bonds with the folks that come in and have the courage to ask us for help. That's the only way that we can give women back their power, is by letting them have control over their decisions in a safe and trusting atmosphere. And I believe that giving control back and giving power back to the people is the best way to meet them where they're at, because then they can express their needs. They can express what it is that is going to help them to succeed. And I mean, we can come out with all of the things that we have to help someone that might not be what they need as a person, you know, to move forward in their life. And so just creating that atmosphere of trust and of giving people the control that they have over their lives to make the decisions that they need to succeed.
Very well said. And we're even going to talk a little bit more about that. Viviana, will you weigh in on this?
I am loving what Janet and Giana, what they're both saying, because absolutely, because I tell people my pronouns are fierce, fabulous, and Mama V. And any woman that walks through the door, here's the one thing that the women here, and I'm talking about women who are veterans, because, you know, we have different branches, and branches are all different. You know, the Army, the Air Force, you know, they're all different. But there's a commonality that we all had to experience boot camp. And that's every woman here. We have all had to go on a journey that has not always been sweet. There were a lot of things on that road. So when they're coming in for me, because I love women anyway, you know, these women are reminded that they are fierce and fabulous because everybody did not make boot camp. Just like Giana knows, I don't have to say it, every transgender or person you know was not able to make that journey and survive. Some of them cut their own life off. Jana knows people, because you said it, people give up. So I remind these fierce, fabulous women that not everybody survived what they survived in boot camp. Not everyone has gone on their journey and has made it, but that they are still here. So when they walk in, I have those that are very loud. People down the hall will say, oh my God, she's so loud. I said, yes, but here I love it. Because when she's loud, she said, oh, I know I'm loud. I said, no, you're you. You're you. And there's nothing that I would change about you. I can't even change things about me. I can barely tie my own shoes. And so if they're loud, they can be loud here and start singing loud. I'm not annoyed by that because that's who they are. For the women that don't like to be touched, guess what? I don't touch them. I give them the little virtual thing, the little high five, and I meet them where they are. For the ones that want to volunteer, but they don't like to be around anyone, guess what? They're the first ones to meet me at a volunteer site. They say, you know, I'm early. I don't do the crowds, but I'm here. Let me do what I need to do and go. That's fine. For the ones that want to just bring water, fine. For the ones that want to send, this is what it is. It's like being in a classroom with different learners and not just teaching the same way, but it's knowing to have them at the board, finding out who the scribes are, having them take a turn, now letting somebody be the leader, now having the class sit in a circle. And that's what we're doing here. This is how we are meeting the needs of these women here. When they come through the door, as soon as they walk in, the arms are open and ready to receive them. And I don't always know what they're bringing, but they know that they can bring it here. And that's what meeting them where they are. That's what it is right here.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And to add on to that a little bit, Jana, you spoke about trust. Viviana, you've spoken about resources. We know some of the most important factors to being able to offer support. I just want to talk a little bit more about holistic support and thinking about, you know, in the experience of someone who has been experiencing ongoing lived trauma. We understand that in order to feel empowered and take these steps towards self-sufficiency, one doesn't just need a job or just need money or just need material items or even just need a home. Why is it so important to think about it in this holistic way, putting all of the pieces into place, you know, when we're thinking about support? And I guess to take it a step further, why is specialized support for those that your organizations are serving specifically so paramount? Janet, will you start us off?
Yeah. So there's this misconception that if you see someone who's experiencing homelessness, you shove them into an apartment and like all their problems are over. And that is so wrong on so many levels. And the longer you've been unhoused, the harder it is to stay housed if you don't have special support. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're unhoused, and a woman, you're particularly vulnerable and you have no reason to trust anybody. There's nothing in your history that, you know, informs you that you should trust anybody. And so you're very careful about who you do end up trusting. And then you do build up a network of people you do trust, whether they're housed or unhoused, and you need their support. And I said before that being unhoused is an extremely socially isolating thing to experience, and it's traumatic. But then once you're in housing, there's so many problems with being placed in a place that, like, in a community that you're not familiar with. A lot of people who are unhoused, like, choose to be unhoused in a community where they feel safe, where they have a community, where they know the neighborhood. And when you're kind of placing someone in an area far, far away, far from anything that they've known, like far from where they were once housed, where they're far from their friends, it becomes destabilizing. It's just as destabilizing to do that to somebody as, as like, being unhoused as well. Because when you think about it, we're all human beings and we all need emotional support. We all need love. We all need care. We need to have our friends. We need to have our family members support us. And so being shoved into an apartment is just as isolating. And if you don't have support, if you don't have, the things you need to stay successfully housed, whether that is job placement or employment skills workshops or substance use treatment or a gamut of things that, like not only address your past trauma, but your current trauma. And then if you don't have access to people like who you have trust in, who genuinely care about you and have your well-being at heart, then that's like a failing prospect. So just like with everyone else, like I'm sure, like, you all are very strong, powerful women who hopefully get a lot of support from your community. Women who are unhoused are not different from any of us. We need support. We need love. And if we don't have that, then like, what kind of future do any of us have? So that's like, I would say that's like, the biggest thing that I can think of in terms of how you can empower someone to like have them be placed in a community where they are familiar with, that they feel safe in, that they have access to their friends. And it's as simple as that. And that's a really, really hard thing for especially elected officials or some homeless providers to really understand.
Which is just so mind-boggling. It's core to every human being, and the fact that we discount that is a need, and perhaps an even greater need for folks who have been pushed aside or lived through trauma, to not need that. We have a lot to overcome there, but I'm glad that we're talking about it. And Janet, while we're talking about this, I'm just wondering, we have a question from the audience, and this feels like the right time to ask it, from Shana, who's wondering about, could you expand on the difference between homelessness and houselessness as terms?
So the language keeps shifting to be more respectful towards people, which, we should always think about the words we use to describe people and try to be as respectful as we can, just in general for everything. So generally the vocabulary changed from people experiencing homelessness, because you shouldn't let homelessness define you. But then also there are people who believe that, their encampment, their tent, or like wherever they're staying is their home. So they're not homeless because they have something that, they believe is a home. You might not think it's a home, but they absolutely believe that it's a home. So they are houseless. So it really is a matter of personal preference. And it's always like good to like talk to people and see like what they're comfortable with.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Because, right, I think, often, and just what you were speaking about with regard to a lack of community and perhaps love and support, we often associate all of those things with the idea of home. So if someone's lacking home, they may be lacking all of those other things, which is an important reminder that it's not simply the lack of a structure, within which one lives, but the lack of those other support systems. But I do love the common theme of asking and really having the conversation and getting to know someone as an individual. Viviana, will you respond to this one?
You know what, when Jana was talking, I could so resonate with that on so many levels. First of all, when I went to live with my mother, and I'm talking, this was, years ago, over 30 years ago, but I still felt homeless. I was home, with my parents, but it wasn't my place. And recently we had a veteran that came to live with us to start all over again. And I know what that is. So no problem. And I was telling him, you have 1 year, 12 months, 365 days. And so I was counting down, 9 months, 8 months, and getting him back, got the license back, for the career, I was doing great, programs were available, wonderful, because Janet said it. You can put the person into an apartment, and then it doesn't stop there, because the person gotten so comfortable. They said, you're scared. They said, you're scaring me, Viv. Mama V, you scared me. You're making me feel like, like I'm going to be homeless again. And I had to say, I said, well, sweetheart, you have been. I said, because this is not your home. I says, you have to get back out there. And I said, because you can do it. Because what Janet said is so true, and Giana said it earlier. It can sap the energy out of you. Here, oh, listen, I wasn't paid to do this. I have to lift up our mayor, because she allowed this veteran service agency, and veteran service agency, we're there to do the claims, we help you get the apartment, blah, 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 blah. But she allowed this place to be a one-stop shop, so that we can speak to the body, the mind, the soul, the spirit. So we have the in-house counselors that come here. So if they need to speak about the military sexual trauma, they don't have to get on a train or a bus and go all the way uptown, downtown, upstate, and then come back on a lonely journey. There's a private room here. And I want to tell you something. When we brought the services in-house, the line was out the door, that the counselors, instead of the 2 hours, the counselors were here 5 hours, because we have to speak to every part of it. Because first of all, let's say the obvious, Janet and Giana and Kelly. We are so complex as women. We are so multifaceted, multi-talented, multitask, and guess what? We are worthy and we deserve to have every part spoken to us, because I want them to know about entrepreneurship. We can find them a job. Our veterans that were at the college with us, that we did Operation Push, who were told that they were not college material and had a 0.9, graduated undergrad with a 3.1, and we did an Operation Push into masters. They all have the masters, work KPMG, FBI, they're all over the place. You can find a job, you can find a career. Janet is right, and Giana said it too. But if you don't feel worthy, come on, people. We'll be on a roller coaster ride of our lives, going around and around. So, you have to speak to every part of who that person is. You have to speak to their creative aspects. You have to put in the art therapy, the music therapy. You have to, and again, Janet said it, meeting them where they are. Those with entrepreneurship. Our U.S. Navy now has her 2 masters. She went to Harvard, and guess what? She just said when she was in the Navy, all she did was paint. All I did was paint, because we downplay what we do, because we do it so naturally. We do it as volunteers. We do it for free. We do it as neighbors. Then now she owns her own painting company. Now she owns her own boutique. Now she's a professor teaching marketing. And she came back and found me and redid what was an office with racks and clothes and turned it into Kristen's Closet Boutique.
And we know it's beautiful.
This is why we want to speak to the whole approach.
Yes, yes. I mean, the theme of
what it does. This is what it does. It takes us to an entirely different level. Janet and Giana knows that this is why they are who they are today.
The power of uplifting women. It's so powerful. So powerful.
And you know what, though? Here's the powerful thing about it. And tell me if you agree, ladies. While we're doing this and offering this, I can be honest and transparent and say, when these vets come in here, they are my therapy, because it's healing me. Helping to heal them is healing me. I'm being healed.
Thanks, Viviana. Giana, your organization and their commitment to offering direct services in support of transgender, gender nonconforming, non-binary, and gender variant folks and their families is so important. We know that there's still a long way to go in terms of specialized support for these individuals and families. And like so many things, change starts with creating more awareness. So where do we start? How, as individuals and companies, can we be better allies and advocates?
So I think just holding spaces that are safe for trans people to just be themselves and to have conversations about trans experience. I think positive visibility is important. I feel like the cisgendered community doesn't always get to see the success stories of trans people. We often see sensationalized trans women and trans men on social media and places like this. And that's not an accurate depiction of what it is like to be a trans person. Although that's nice, not every trans person gets to experience life in that way. So just just being able to celebrate real trans people and the realities of their lives. And inclusion. So having spaces that are offer equitable opportunities for trans people, especially trans people of color, also because a lot of times those two intersections can make it a little bit more difficult for people to succeed. And I think that those are like, I'm sure that there's a lot more, but just thinking about it, those are the things that come to mind first.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, right, you said it at the beginning, creating that safe space and letting it be a place where all are welcome feels like such an important step and something that we can take on at an individual level and then influence at a group level, a community level. I think that's a great place to start.
And you know, also too, making sure that the spaces are safe probably looks a little bit more like spaces being inclusive, but also where policies are in place to protect the lives and safety of trans people. So that's the most important thing for trans folks to feel protected. You know, we can't just walk into a space where there's not policies that protect us. If there's policies that protect everyone else, we need policies to protect us too. And that will create a safety net that makes it more accessible for trans people.
Absolutely. And another example of the systems that are at play that, you know, we really have so much to do to fix, but I think that's an excellent point. And speaking of creating these group and community activated initiatives, Janet, SELAH is grounded in local activism and neighborhood connection and relationship building, which has been a common theme throughout this whole conversation. Your model really proves the impact of using the power of local community to make change. And I think sometimes we underestimate the power of small actions and the notion that we as individuals and a small group of like-minded folks can truly make change. Do you have any advice for us on how to think and act within one's community, something that we could all take away from this conversation and hopefully put into action?
Glad you asked, Kelly. There are so many things that are so important to do on a local level. I think we get distracted by the razzle dazzle of like what's going on in federal government, not understanding that things like homelessness services and facilities and resources for homelessness, those happen on a local level, like your city council members or your, you know, LA County Board of Supervisors. Those are the people who actually make the decisions that impact your neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. And for us, it's really, really important to really lean into that collective action and really organize and demand affordable housing, homelessness services, and you know, really help people understand that things like social housing or rent subsidies, that costs a fraction of what we're currently doing now, which is managing homelessness through prisons and through emergency rooms and urgent care centers. Those are very, very expensive, publicly funded ways to deal with homelessness when you can invest a lot in homeless prevention strategies like rent subsidies. It costs like a fraction. And to understand that we really need our neighbors to understand that like homelessness prevention is a lot easier and a lot cheaper than to help someone who is chronically homeless or someone who's been, you know, unhoused for a really, really, really long time. It's incredibly difficult to have that person successfully housed. And so for us, like, it's really important to advocate for resources and facilities and really get, you know, our communities to have buy-in for, you know, if you're blocking a transitional housing facility in your neighborhood, you're doing your unhoused neighbors a great disservice. And a lot of that comes from fear and, you know, just buying into a lot of misconceptions about homelessness and what that means for property values, things like that. And that's also dehumanizing, because like, you want to help, you just want the help to happen in a neighborhood that, you know, isn't anywhere close to you. That's not okay. And that's not effective. And for us as a community group, it's really important for us to, like, you know, help our neighbors understand that about homelessness. And it's really important for us to really get to understand the experiences of our unhoused neighbors. Like Giana said, like, people have all kinds of different experiences. And how are you going to really advocate for someone who is living a life that is so completely different from yours, unless you have a conversation, unless you get to know them, unless you know, have a dialogue about how to make them feel safe or give them the confidence to accept your assistance. And there are a lot of things that, you know, come out of these conversations, and there are a lot of things that you learn about your community or your city or your county when you're trying to help a woman who is pregnant go into housing, and realizing that there are actually no resources for her to be placed into housing with her partner. And so that is just mind-blowing to me. So like, what woman who is reliant on her partner for safety, security, is going to go really far away and go into housing like without her partner? So things like that, like things you would not know unless you're actively trying to assist someone and realizing where your local government is really, really failing. And I think we've gone through so many common themes: trust building, community building, having conversations, how to ensure the safety of our unhoused neighbors and, you know, other really vulnerable people in your community. And these are all things that we have to work towards, and we have to keep working towards. And you do that through collective action. You do that by building community. You do that by finding like-minded people in your area and just getting something started. Like these ladies, these incredible women, just started something because we're like, we need to do something. We need to help. And, you know, like, let's not wait for someone to, like, you know, help us. Like, we need to do it ourselves. And I think, like, if you have a community-led organization or a community activist group or whatnot, that's how it's going to happen. You're not going to wait for someone to do it for you. You're going to do it yourself, and you have to.
Yes, yes. And, you know, I just think all of that is so important, and that it starts with having a conversation. You know, like if you're feeling empowered to help out, learning what you can about the issue that you're fighting for, having those conversations, meeting folks in those situations with lived experience, and then talking about it with your networks and friends, and helping to shift the conversation and those misconceptions, and gathering like-minded people. That's a huge start. It's so, I think we underestimate the power of conversation sometimes, you know, whether it's with someone we haven't met yet or with one another, and sharing our feelings about a topic that we feel passionate about. We're so close to running out of time, and I feel like I want to ask so many more questions. We've gotten some amazing questions in the chat, and I'm sorry we haven't been able to get to all of them. We've been keeping note of them, and we'll be able to follow up with you via email as long as you registered with your email address. So we'll be able to answer as many questions as we can after the fact. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them tonight. I just want to end on one last sort of lightning round question for each of you. What does it mean to celebrate and uplift women and their strengths, particularly through the work that you do? Jana, let's start with you, and then Jenna and Viviana.
Okay, so I think that it means recognizing the women who do this work, acknowledging successes, their efforts, their hard work, showing the community the successes and celebrating them as role models for the community, and hope for other women who have been in other situations or similar situations, to see that there is hope, there is opportunity for success and change and all of those amazing things. And I think that it starts, you know, it starts with us and recognizing all of the amazing and hard work that everyone puts into helping and providing resources for folks.
So well said. Janet?
You can always celebrate women by supporting them, acknowledging their work. Like everything Giana said, it's exhausting. The work that we do is exhausting. Like it's very emotional, and to be in a situation where you're, you know, trying to help someone through trauma without further traumatizing them, that's a lot. And there are so many women doing incredible work in every community all around the world. I think women do a lion's share of work in helping each other, whether it's food security, homeless services, you know, like advocacy, like just in every aspect, like women do a lot of work. So there are women in your community who are doing so much. Seek them out, acknowledge them, boost their work through your social media, contribute to them. You know, like there are so many ways to support, like volunteer. And, you know, that is one way to celebrate women, by helping them do the work that they're already doing. There are so many out there, and you know, it's like, just Google it and just like ask around, and you'll find an organization that really, really speaks to you. And I promise you, a lot of them are being run by women. So support women, support like people's work.
Yes. All right, bring us home, Mama V.
All right, ladies. It means remembering. It means to remember that we are sisters, that the word approved is etched in each of our foreheads, that you're wearing a banner that says strength, a belt that says worthy. And when we embark upon each other, we are better together than apart. And it's okay if you come up front while I lean to the back, and then I lean to the side so that you can come in, that we're all an important piece of the puzzle to be celebrated, and no puzzle can be completed without you.
Powerful close. Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone that joined us tonight. Thanks for hanging in for a couple extra minutes. Thank you to this incredible, inspiring panel of women and the work that you do every day.
I learned so much. Thank you, Bomba Socks, for making it possible. Bombas!
Thank you, Bombas. We love Bombas.
Well, we couldn't do what we do without all of you, and we're so glad to be able to contribute in that way. Thanks for bringing the realities of your experience and those that you work with to our greater audience. You know, tonight is the start of a conversation, and I hope that for everyone here, the takeaway is to continue to have these conversations even when they're hard. Ask questions and learn more, and we're always here to support. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. I'm just gonna try to save all these extra wonderful questions that came through so I can share them with y'all.
Nice, thank you.
Good night, Viviana.
Great job, Kelly.